Hi, welcome to this episode of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. It's Monday and we are back. I almost said back in the studio, but we're not back in the studio. We're back on your screens. For this first hour, we're going to be catching you up on a few things that have been happening around here. And then Tom Nappy will be taking over and talking all things the NFL draft, of which I know nothing. So
I was
good
going to
luck with
say,
that.
Jim, it looks like you're back in the studio.
I know. I can't tell if I like that or if it just makes me sad.
You can do both.
Yeah, that's true, right? I think that's the term bittersweet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey guys, welcome back from the weekend.
It's good to be
Glad
back.
here.
All right. All right. So actually, it was kind of interesting. Matt was saying, "Oh, we should talk about what we did on the weekend," and I was like, "Yeah, we should talk about our social stuff." But we actually we should talk for a minute about anything interesting that we did in the weekend. I will say that I spent a decent amount of the weekend starting to format the Cousins Family recipe book, which are all the recipes that are real winners in our family that we want to make sure we don't lose and we make from time to time or for special occasions. So I've been looking to do that for a couple of years. My wife is a keeper of that recipe book, and she just puts them all together, and I'm the person who kind of cleans them up. So I was having fun with that this weekend.
Does that include all the recipes you got from your mother?
Yes, it does. In fact, not only my mother, but my grandmother and my great grandmother has a recipe in there. So, and that's on
Wow.
Rachel. Rachel is kind of like the cook in our family. She just really loves it. So she's got her own recipe section of her favorites, and her great grandmother's brownie recipe is in there. Yep.
How are these recipes stored? Are they all on loose leaf pages and you're trying to put them all together?
No, not in this day and age. Nope, it's a Google Doc. So right
Oh,
now
wow.
it's
that'll do
60.
it.
It's 60 pages long,
Wow.
and
I never thought of that. That's a great idea.
yeah. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of because I just like making things look nice and putting a little style on there. So it's been a lot of fun for me.
Are you organizing them according to breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts?
We have the categories are chicken, fish, meat, other, and then there are special recipes, Rachel's recipes, and desserts.
But I
Which
know,
is, yeah.
oh, sorry, I know you have to have some gluten-free recipes in there.
Actually, Bob, they're all gluten free. There are
Ah,
no recipes in there that have to have gluten
oh,
because you know some of them were really crafted to be awesome. I will tell you, my wife has a um, cupcake recipe that we also make chocolate cake out of that I will put up against any regular homemade cupcake. It is so good. It is so good. So that was like specially made to be, really good. But just any recipe, as long as you got that right flour, we use cup for cup. I think
yeah,
you were talking about was it King Arthur's?
yeah, yeah, that and Jules,
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
gluten-free Jules. Yeah, she
Yeah.
uses that a lot. But cup for cup, yeah, my daughters use cup for cup all the time, and they like that.
Yeah, and we have a waffle maker, which I'll tell you the best invention is amazing. It's a double-sided waffle maker. So you put the stuff in, then you flip it, and then you put more stuff in, and you're
Oh,
making two at a time.
Oh, wow.
And we use gluten-free Bisquick. Oh, it's just like you're at a restaurant. It's so good. But
that's
anyways,
unusual, hard to find too.
yeah, I know. You can't find any gluten-free Bisquick around here now. But anyways, that's enough about me. How about you guys? What'd you guys do?
Well,
Uh,
I celebrated the wife's birthday this weekend.
You
Had a nice,
did?
yeah.
Oh, that's so great. What'd you do?
We Saturday was very nice out, so we cooked on the grill. Uh, had her family over and uh, had some barbecue, and it
She's
was very nice.
she's Brazilian, right?
Yes.
My daughter married a Brazilian guy. Those people know how to party. Oh
Oh,
my gosh, it's unbelievable.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had obviously the linguiça.
Mm-hmm.
That is well loved by many, especially in South America and Portugal. It's big. So we had some linguiça, chicken wings. We had some steak, a lot of steak,
Yeah.
and then some wonderful Brazilian pastries and a cake.
Oh, that's so good. And I mean, when they know how to party, they just come and they just hang out and they just have a great time. And sometimes, they'll come back the next day and continue on. And it's just like it's really nice to see. It's like a really bonding, spending time together, quality family time. I really like that style.
Yeah, absolutely. They're always a lot of fun. We were playing card games and talking, and it was just a great time. It's always a fun time with them, and uh, they're certainly night owls as well. They'll stay pretty late.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, are they fluent in English or do they speak Portuguese?
They're most well, the parents mostly Portuguese, a little bit of English.
Yeah.
My wife speaks very good English. Her sister does. Her brother speaks great English as well.
Yeah.
But I have learned throughout the years how to communicate very well with them all. So
So it's a quick brother son-in-law. His sister came over. She was in high school, and really interesting. She taught herself English by watching TV. Thought it was amazing. And so, so she's sitting at our kitchen table and she's like talking to my kids and they're having a conversation and she's speaking in English. Everything's fine. So I came over and I said something and she just kind of froze. And then she looked at my daughter. She says, I don't know what he said. It was my accent. She couldn't understand what I was saying. So then I started speaking with a real New England accent just to throw her off.
my wife has trouble with the English accent. Whenever
Yeah.
on TV there's an English accent,
Oh,
she she goes, I can't really understand this guy.
I find that amazing. Well, that's great. Well, congratulations. Good job.
Yeah, and speaking of learning a language through TV, one of our good friends, her friend's boyfriend, who I've become very good friends with, when I first met him, he spoke barely no English, and then he went on to YouTube and did all these tutorials on how to speak English, and now he speaks it like perfectly. It's amazing. Just watching how fast he learned it, watching how fast my wife learned it. When I first met her, she didn't speak very good English as well, and she learned it so quick.
Yeah. I give those people a lot of credit. Man, I had so much trouble with Spanish in high school. I am terrible at second languages.
I was
Yeah.
never great in Spanish either, but what surprised me was several years, I guess 4 years ago at this point, my cousin got married down in Costa Rica to a woman from there. And so it was a destination wedding, which was really cool. I was actually very surprised when the ceremony was fully in Spanish, and I was actually able to understand quite a bit of it,
Mm,
even though I hadn't taken Spanish in like 5 years at that point.
no kidding. That must have been cool.
Yeah, it was.
Isn't it really hard? Don't they speak like when somebody is a natural Spanish speaker, don't they speak really fast compared to when you're just studying a language in school?
That's the trend that I've experienced. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, when I've studied languages in school, I took Italian. I'm a visual guy, and I need things repeated like a number of times to finally get them down. So I have a tough time learning other languages, but
Yeah.
bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, how many languages do you speak?
I'm barely able to speak English, but I did spend some time with some Japanese engineers putting together a system out at Norton Company for a while. And I was able to pick up a lot of what they were saying, whether I could speak back to them or not, but they knew I understood what they were saying because I remember they brought in some of their executives from the home office in New York. And while the executives were talking to the technicians that I was working with, they stopped them and said, he understands what you're saying.
Oh,
So at least I
wow.
could understand Japanese. I wouldn't go any further than that, though. Although I did spend some time in Italy and Spain and Denmark, Scotland. I could barely understand them in Scotland.
I've been there.
I know. Isn't that amazing? Oh, I love an Irish accent. I think that's a really beautiful sounding accent. What was your favorite place, Bob, of all the places you visited?
America.
Really?
It gave me a big perspective on how other countries are. I mean, the people were friendly, the people were always nice, but I never really found a country where I could say, wow, this is great. I wish I lived here. Every place
No.
I went, all I could think, oh, yeah, this is nice. Maybe a nice place to visit, but there's just too much in America. I was from the Midwest and I've been to the West Coast, East Coast, all around the country.
Yeah.
And every place you go in the country, there's always something new and different to see. And in Europe, it was kind of very similar, but even though the languages were different, people were different, but I still preferred America.
Yeah. Huh, that's really interesting.
I'll take the food in Italy over anybody.
Yeah.
And so when we went to Italy, what we have? Pizza.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, but is the pizza in Italy like the pizza around here, or is it different?
No, it's different. I went to Naples and I was in Naples. I was in other parts of Italy, but in Naples, I was surprised the pizza is really soaked in olive oil. So it was good pizza and it was cooked well, but it's different. You can't get that kind of pizza over here, even
Yeah.
in New York.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. My sister is a real world traveler. They go all over the place all the time. And honestly, sometimes I think, am I going to regret this, when I'm old, that like I haven't been all around the world? But I really kind of thought about it a lot. And I just think that, you know what? I'm just really happy where I am and I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I just have to think I'm not going to have a big regret when I'm old.
Our good friend John Ritz just said he loved Portugal, especially the food. But he would move to Ireland in a heartbeat.
Oh, no kidding. So, Bob, what was it like eating in Scotland?
Oh, Scotland, fish and chips mainly. That's all, and of
Yeah.
course beer. But
Mhm.
so it wasn't bad eating in Scotland. I didn't have any problem there. But we were only there for about a week, so there was a lot to do besides eat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that I worry about. Like, oh, I like fish and chips and I like certain stuff like that. But a lot of, I'm a very, very plain kind of eater. And I would worry about being comfortable, eating there. My son has gone on a couple trips down to the Dominican Republic. And my son, if you asked him, like, what are the food groups that he most enjoys, it's pasta and it's pizza. Those are the things that are his favorite. So he went down there and he and he ate lamb, and we were like, "Oh my goodness, he ate lamb!" But he said the worst thing was some kind of fruit. It was a very slimy fruit that he doesn't eat fruit around here, and he actually ate that. Even my wife, who loves everything, said, "Wow, you ate that. That's a really tough one." But he's social. He doesn't want to say, he doesn't want to make people feel bad, so he does that. Matt, what did you have going on this weekend?
I had a few things going on. I was cooking a lot. I was telling you guys about it, but I'll tell our viewers. I made what are called cream puff crack buns on Saturday, and they're called crack buns because they have a layer of cookie on top, essentially, like that's like baked over, and so the top is nice and crackly.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a French pastry. It's someone's gonna have to forgive my French here because I've never taken it, so I'm definitely gonna butcher this. It's called choux au craquelin, something like that. That's what it's called. But they're just cream puffs with cookie on top, basically, and they're very delicious. And I even made the pastry cream filling from scratch because I saw this recipe and I had everything already in the house. I didn't have to go out and buy anything, which is kind of a sign. So I just gave it a try, and they were delicious.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would try that.
Kind of
I mean, yeah.
reminds me of trifle. That's one of my favorite desserts.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some. I had some Scottish friends that a friend of mine made the trifle, and she's amazed that I think it's such a big deal because over there it's like we just throw this together and that's what you have is trifle. It's not a big deal, but I really found it delicious and could have eaten the whole bowl, but I was too polite to
Mhm.
do that.
I know. You know what I find like that is that good? Pop Tarts. I get a nice blueberry frosted Pop Tart. I could eat the whole box. I also eat good things too, though, because the last time we were talking about food, my mother was telling me, "Boy, it's a lot of junk food you guys are talking about."
Yeah, Pop Tarts were my go-to breakfast item back in high school. I
Yeah.
can't even say I ate the fruit ones. It was normally chocolate fudge.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna go to Pop Tart, I mean, let's not fool ourselves, right?
I mean, there's a reason I don't buy them now. It's because I know I would eat them every day if I, but
Yep.
they're
Yeah,
not something I can eat for breakfast nowadays.
I know. Bob, what did you do this weekend?
Well, as you know, I spent Sunday morning doing the Sunday religious service on HCAM for YouTube and HCAM TV. So that was a nice Sunday morning episode. But we got outside because the weather was pretty nice one day, and we were able to try and get some sun, get some vitamin D. But we were able to, some of the neighbors came out on their porch, and without seeming too ridiculous, we were able to talk across the street without violating any social distancing rules. So it was nice for a change.
It really was. Oh my goodness, I enjoyed that warm day that we had. And
Yeah.
so I'm really curious to hear how it went running the church service. I talked to Mike a little bit after, but you were the guy who was in charge. Were you nervous?
Not at all. No, it was fine. Everything worked out great. I had
Yeah.
no problems. There was never, okay, well, maybe a little bit, but at the beginning, yeah, as it rolled in,
Mhm.
it seemed to go very quick. I was able to advance through. And I have to give credit to all the pastors that were on that they followed their script and they stuck to their lines. We only had one or two technical issues that were barely noticeable to anybody watching. So I think it worked out very well. And I think anybody that was watching would have been pleasantly surprised by it.
That's great. I really love the fact that we're able to do something like that during this time, to bring something that people typically leave their house and congregate for. um, we're able to bring that to them at the same time, live. I think it brings a real good dimension of almost normalcy. It's like it's not something that's been edited or pre-recorded or all put together. It's just live, like it's supposed to be. So that's
And
great.
I think it points out, at least for me anyway, it shows the breadth of HCAM's ability to provide the Hopkinton Hangout Hours during the week, which may be a little frivolous from time to time, to other specters of the community. We've talked about making masks and healthcare
Mhm.
workers and the religious community. So we're trying to touch all the bases in Hopkinton.
So did Bob just call us frivolous?
I said some of the topics were frivolous.
All right, all
I
right.
can't
Well,
say what I.
all right. Well, speaking of a non-frivolous topic, I say kind of tongue-in-cheek. Tom, why don't you tell us what you're planning for us to talk about a week from today, on next Monday's edition of the Hangout Hour?
We will be talking about Mother's Day. We'll be talking about what is your Mother's Day traditions? What gifts do you think you should buy? What gifts do you recommend? So, Mother's Day traditions and gifts. We'll be talking about that next Monday, and we'll have questions out on social media as well because we want your perspective and your input for this edition. So, that'll take place on next Monday.
That's great. That's great. This is going to be a Mother's Day unlike any other Mother's Day that we've ever had. So it'll be really interesting to see what type of unique angles, gifts, or other sentiments that people are coming up with during this time. So that's great. Now it's a little bit early, but we actually talked about doing this. Tom, Andrew is actually in the waiting room now. So why don't we usher him in, turn control over to you. You can start the NFL talking. And when your second guest comes in, I'll just bring them on.
Sounds great.
Okay, here he comes. Take it away, Tom.
All right. So joining us on the show today, we're going to have a couple of guys who talk a whole lot of sports over at MyFM 101.3. And we have one of them right now. We got Andy Barron on with us. Andy, how are you?
How we doing, Tom?
Doing good. Can't complain.
Can't get. Are you? Yeah. I mean, I know we've talked a few times here and there, and it's just. I think you're like the first. I think you're the first person I've talked to in like probably over a month. I mean, actually face to face. I mean, this is just. What do you even say to all this? It's unfathomable, really.
Yeah, it certainly is a tough thing for pretty much everybody, but
Absolutely.
yeah. But I guess one distraction we recently had was the NFL draft, which we will certainly get into throughout the course of this episode. But first off, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Obviously, you work with us over at MyFM 101.3 and do a whole lot of sports for them. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know, for some of the listeners who actually now see what I look like, the mystery has been unrevealed now. But I've been in radio since 2001. I'm almost going on 20 years now. Hard to believe. I grew up in Uxbridge, Massachusetts. So I'm a New Englander at heart. I just bought a house here in Milford 2 years ago. Great community, great town, and really have enjoyed working for a great station like MyFM. There's so many great people that work there. It's such a great station to work, Tom. You know, and you've been there for a while now too. I mean, 9 times station of the year is just unbelievable. I mean, that is just amazing. Just how great that this station has. It's really a staple in our community. My dad actually used to play basketball at St. Mary's in Milford. His games used to be announced on the old WMRC back in the 70s. And it's just, it's great. You know, it's just a great area, and no other great place in Hopkinton too, where the historic Boston Marathon goes every year. And it's just, you know, I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I've been able to do. They actually they pay us to talk, which is
right. Talk sports.
We'll talk sports, yeah. And I really enjoy working with you, Tom, as well. We've announced some classic football games this past fall. I mean, I remember that game we had. I believe it was Milford and Foxborough when it was like a 4th and 30 was converted. I think twice in the game, which is just, you never know what you're going to get in high school sports, as you always tell me.
You certainly don't. It's always so fun to call the games, and yeah, you never know what you're going to get. And covering teams throughout the area is always a lot of fun, and a lot of great teams in the area too. So we end up getting a lot of playoff games. But so I want to get into the NFL draft. Obviously, it was a very different draft than we're used to. Typically, you would have everyone gathering in pretty much one location. This year it was supposed to be Vegas, but instead it was a stay-at-home kind of draft.
Mm-hmm.
And they put cameras pretty much in everyone's house, the players, the coaches, the team executives, and you had the GM calling out all the picks. But I thought for the first time that we saw a draft like this, I thought it was a really good production. And I thought it almost felt like more like a draft because you're literally getting a glimpse inside the players' homes, waiting to be called as they're with their families, hoping to hear their name. It had a nice homey feel to it. I just thought it was a very good production, and there wasn't a whole lot of technical difficulties at all. And one of the things I liked the most was pretty much it was analysis, highlights, facts about the players, and there wasn't much more besides that. I loved it. I really enjoyed watching the draft this year. How'd you feel about it?
Well, I tell you, Tom, it got a lot of good reviews. I mean, Jerry Jones was on his yacht, I think, at one point. Then you saw a picture of Bill Belichick's dog. That was that was hanging out there too. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't watch a lot of it just because I unfortunately don't get the NFL Network, so I had to. But I kind of went online to see what was going on a little bit, and I thought it was going to be a disaster, honestly, because of what the NFL. Anytime they get their hands on something, it doesn't seem to work out as planned. But it got a lot of good reviews. I got to admit, it was different. And I think we have to expect this going forward too now, Tom, especially with the NBA draft coming up and the NHL draft. I mean, I don't see anything taking in place in person for the rest of the year. So if the NFL actually started this, that is that's a good sign going forward, because I think this is what things are going to be like going forward for at least the rest of this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. And right now, joining us, we have another broadcaster from MYFM 101.3, our good friend Matt Romeling is joining us. Matt, how are you doing? I think he's trying to maybe straighten out his audio. Matt, you with us? All right, we'll let Matt get situated. He is attempting to join us as well. But yeah, to your point, I do think that we will see a lot of different things like this. I think for even when things start to reopen, which hopefully will be soon, it's going to be different. It's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be just the click of a button. Everything's the same. So I think you'll see more of these social distancing measures in sports and obviously in restaurants and stuff like that. But I just wonder, like, how are the games going to be? Is there going to be fans?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a wait and see situation. I don't think anybody could predict what's going to happen. But I don't know. I just felt like watching this draft. It felt to me like more like what a draft is supposed to be about. The fact that you could see inside the players' houses, you could see them with their families, you could see how anxious they are waiting to get called. I love the style of it, and maybe they should continue drafts like this. Obviously, right now for the near future, they may, but even after this whole thing, I mean, this was pretty cool. And then they had fans Skyping in to boo the commissioner.
Yep, so I saw that. Yeah.
They made the atmosphere as great as they possibly can. They really did a good job. I was very impressed with it. And obviously there was a number of surprise picks. There was some great athletes that were drafted out of college. A whole lot of receivers were drafted, especially out of the SEC. But let's get into the nooks and crannies of this draft here. We'll start off with the first round of the draft. And the first pick, it was Joe Burrow out of LSU for the Cincinnati Bengals. They obviously needed a quarterback, and all the scouts and all the analysts said he was the best one available. So Cincinnati went ahead and got him, and I think they got themselves a pretty good quarterback.
Well, what the Bengals need everything at this point. So it's like they could not possibly screw up this pick, Tom. They had to take Joe Burrow, and he's an Ohio native. So here's the deal. Joe Burrow goes in and turns around the Cincinnati Bengals, he will be a legend for the rest of his career. I mean, it's just I always say this, you have to start with the quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league, and you have to start with the quarterback. And it's always going to be that way going forward. So the Bengals, they had no other choice. They had to have taken Joe Burrow to really save their franchise. If you really think about it, this is a franchise that is, moving on from Andy Dalton, who was there for 9 years, which that's hard to believe. There is some talent on that team, but I mean, they need a lot of work. So he's going to get thrown into the lion's den, obviously, but you got to start somewhere, and we will see what happens.
Right, we certainly will. And you're right; they need a whole lot more talent. They need some weapons on that team as well. Another quarterback taken in the first 5 picks was the 5th pick for Miami, Tua, and I always mess up the last name, but I'll give it a try. Tagovailoa out of Alabama, and everybody has watched Tua the last couple of years. Great quarterback. Obviously, last year he got hurt, so the experts all thought that he was going to fall pretty hard in the draft.
Yeah.
But watching him play in his junior year, I thought he was tremendous. I think Miami got themselves a pretty good quarterback.
Well, they had to. I think Miami's a team that seems to be on the uprise right now, but obviously they had to take this chance. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the future there. I mean, I think that's pretty evident. And it seems like Brian Flores is finally turning and trying to build a winning culture in Miami. Once again, you got to start with it. I am glad, though, the Patriots didn't take him. I still thought it was too big of a risk to take Tua, especially after the injury he suffered. Yeah, I think he's got a lot of talent, but I guess we're gonna have to wait and see what happens with him and see if he will indeed even be the starter. I mean, what's going to be the role with Josh Rosen right now in Miami, Tom, as well? Because they have some situations there where are these three guys going to compete for this job, or is Tua get the job right away?
Well, I think it's going to be a competition, and
yeah, seems like it.
It'll be a fun competition as well. And I do believe we have Matt Romeling back, and he is in the process of connecting. Matt, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Is that
How are you guys? That is me.
Oh my God. I didn't even recognize. I haven't seen you in 2 months now? Oh my
I know. COVID lockdown. There it is. Apocalypse beard.
There it is.
That
very
is
original, right?
Yeah. That is classic, Romley.
I think everyone's got one.
Oh, I shaved mine the other day, and I shaved my head too.
Yeah, I ended up shaving. I was growing it out for a while, but then I'm like, this thing's a mess. I got to get rid of it. But it's looking good on you, Matt. You got that nice and styled over there.
Oh, I'm not in charge of whether it stays or goes. She's upstairs. I'll check in with her later, see if she wants me to keep going with it or not.
Matt, so how are you doing throughout this whole thing?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see both of your faces, and especially you, Tom. I get to see Andy quite a bit, and especially now that he's back in town, which is tremendous. And it's nice to see you as well, and nice to see that things are progressing, and you're continuing to do everything over at HCAM, and we hope to be back on the air very soon over at MyFM. We're kind of running with a skeleton crew of one person right now over there as we try to keep him healthy and safe, and hopefully we'll have more people back in the studio in the next couple of weeks.
And I'm sure you were just jonesing a little bit to talk some sports.
Yeah, so I'm ready to go. I mean, I got all this remote equipment, but you still need somebody back at the studio to push that button for you. So I'm glad I'm glad you're with us today, and it's so nice to be on with HCAM and with both of you.
Well, it's great to have you. And for those people out there listening that may not know you, why don't you talk a little bit about your history with MyFM and what you do over there?
Yeah, MyFM 101.3. Andy is over there as well. We host the Sports Buzz each and every Saturday from 11 until 1. And we're online also at myfm1013.com. We're streaming worldwide as well. You can check us out for free on your smartphone as well by downloading our app, which is brought to you by Pins. And again, we're on MyFM 101.3 in Milford and so many other towns surrounding as we went FM about 2 years ago now, maybe a little longer than that.
I think it was 2017, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So 3 years, yeah.
Coming up on 3 years already at MyFM. We're still heard on 1490 AM, but come find us on FM, and we'll be there at Sports Buzz. We hope to be back. Right now, we're running some best of, some old interviews, also some of the key Legion games from the last couple of years. So we've just been trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And we hope to get back on the air live in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We're certainly hoping to all be back one way or the other in the next couple of weeks and start to see things reopening again. But before you got here, we were talking about the production of the NFL draft. And I thought with the circumstances, they did a tremendous job. I really liked the format. I liked seeing the players in their houses with their families waiting to be called. The NFL executives in their houses, Bill Belichick's dog. I thought it was a great production. I really think they did a good job with it.
Yeah, Nike's the star of the draft, I think. Belichick's dog, Nike. And
that's his dog's name, Nike?
Niki.
Apparently.
Yes, apparently. His dog's very, very rich. And he had a very, he had a great line about his dog as well, similar to what he would say about football players. What did he say? He said, my dog's almost as fast as the rabbits it's chased, but he's not quite fast enough. That sounds like the type of compliment he would give one of his players. He had 3 laptops on day one. And then on day 2, he went down to 2 laptops. So I'm not sure why is day 1 so important. You need 3 laptops, but day 2, you only need 2. So those are the type of things I was thinking about when I was watching it. But I have to agree with you. I did not watch a ton of their coverage, but what I did watch, I thought they did a great job. And I think as tough as this situation is, I think we're finding that people are extremely creative and resourceful. And I think that's exactly what you saw. I think producers in general, people probably don't give them enough credit for how creative and resourceful a lot of people in those positions are. Everyone looks at the talking head, the person who looks pretty on TV, but there's so much, as you know, Tom, that goes on behind the scenes. And I think the ESPN staff just hit it out of the park. They tried some new things. They weren't scared to take a risk. And ESPN, for all the criticisms that they maybe take over the years, they're not afraid to try something new. And if it doesn't work, they don't worry about it. And you can see they were doing that in spades in their draft coverage. And I think for the most part, it worked really, really well.
Yeah, I think it worked great. I thought the coverage was excellent. I would have loved to see what the technical director had to do during that thing, because there was so many cameras. I could only imagine.
Yeah, and I know there's other stations that exactly, and you know very well. And I know there's other stations that carry the draft, but just looking at ESPN's coverage in general, I thought they did a great job. I didn't see a lot of NFL networks or some of the others.
Yeah, I watched the ESPN coverage. I was enjoying it too much to turn the channel. I love listening to Mel Kiper, and the thing I liked most about it too was it was really just analysis, highlights, draft picks. That's it. Nothing else.
Yep.
But gentlemen, but honestly, why did the Bengals have to take 20 minutes to make their first pick? Come on.
That is true.
They're the Brown family. Yeah.
But there's no reason for that to take that long. I still think it takes too long for some of these first picks. Let's go, guys. Make your pick. Let's go. I mean, now I like the fact that they've pushed it over a few amount of days, which I do like, but still some of these teams are taking of course you do. You have to. But as I told Tom earlier, Matt, I think this is going to be the way going forward for the rest of this year. I don't see any in-person draft being able to take place.
Yeah, I don't see how any of the drafts would be able to do that. And, I don't want to get too pessimistic, but it's really hard to imagine, stadiums being filled by September. I know we're talking on April the 27th. And, I know it's going to depend. It's going to be state by state. You're already seeing, I think, some 13 states looking to reopen. It's going to depend on how things go. I say the one thing that I really think about from that standpoint, Andy, I think about college football a lot, and I have a hard time imagining college football canceling their season. I mean, I don't want to make any inappropriate jokes about the South right now, but I just can't imagine that happening, that the South would go without SEC football in our current predicament, that they would find a way to play their games. And I also find it hard to believe that they would play games in empty stadiums. But again, it's student athletes. You're not paying the athletes. So there's a lot of considerations, or you're not legally paying the athletes.
Right.
A lot of considerations to take in. But all of that aside, college football, professional football, all the other sports, I find it hard to believe that we're going to be able to put anyone in these stadiums, at least in the 70,000 plus capacity, by September. I mean, maybe we're hoping. Maybe we can get to a point where you can put some fans in the stadium. But I really do think this is going to cause, you talked about it with producers. They're really going to start to think about game presentation without fans. And if they're not already doing it, they better.
And obviously there'll be a big revenue hit because you don't get fans. The TV ratings will be massive, as they were for the NFL draft. It was the most watched draft in any draft in history in this country. The first night drew 15.6 million viewers, which is just unbelievable. And really, it's one of the only things going on right now. And obviously, sports fans like us, we're all jonesing for some sports action. And we finally got something at least. And I think that really just attracted all the sports fans, even the ones that don't typically watch the draft.
Yeah.
I watch usually bits and pieces of it. I watched almost the first 2 full nights this year and part of the third night. It's the only thing going, and it's a great distraction from all the craziness going on around us.
Yeah. Have any of you been watching the WWE at all? Because they've been in empty arenas. I mean, it's just weird. It's just so strange watching this. So just let me ask you this. You have empty football stadiums, which is a real possibility because a lot of cities are saying no fans until 2021. So you can't have one stadium have empty fans and another one have a full stadium. That's just not fair. So it's either going to be we play in empty stadiums or there's no season. And Tom made a good point. The TV revenue is the key with the NFL and college football. It's the TV money is in the billions of dollars. So
Right.
CBS, Fox, and ESPN, ABC, they're still going to make the money, but you lose a lot with parking and liquor sales and food. I mean, it is just like, especially in the South, Matt, as you were saying, like college football in the South is nothing like it is up here. I mean, it is just, it's
I mean, they don't care about the NFL. They really don't.
No, they don't.
Their
Right.
season is college football, and it's just hard to imagine that fan base allowing that to be canceled. But we'll see. You know, I saw with Major League Baseball, I think the commissioner come out and say that, you know, game day situations for them for baseball is about 40% of their revenue. So we think, you know, we know the TV revenue is even higher for the NFL. But I think when we get asked this question, I'm sure you guys have been getting asked it a lot. I certainly have. Is why aren't they back already? And it's money. It's negotiating reduced salaries. I think that's the part everyone, you know, no one wants to talk about that part because we all want to stay together and we don't want to, you know, some people don't have a job right now, so it's tough to talk about that. But players right now, that's why we don't see the NBA back yet, because they're trying to figure out how to reduce their salaries, how they're going to have to play for less. So you know, Tom Brady left town because he got sick of playing for $13 million. You know, he might not get that $25 million in Tampa if he agrees to play and they have to negotiate down. But the NFL players might actually be more immune to that than some of the other sports, is the point you guys were bringing up earlier, because the TV money is so big. Maybe they can get away without having to renegotiate. But for baseball, for the NBA, the players are going to have to agree to pay for less. And that is a huge headache to try to resolve right now.
Oh, it certainly is, because you pretty much have to go back and renegotiate all the CBAs and all that stuff. And I think the other part of it too is, you know, there's teams that are in a hard hit area where things aren't open yet.
Right.
So I think that's part of the reason, because there's plenty of cities that are going to stay closed throughout mid-May, maybe even late May. So you would have to take those teams in those cities that aren't allowing major events or any events with gatherings over 10 and move them to different cities. There's just so much that you have to do to bring sports back. It's hard to believe that we'll see it back anytime soon. But
guys, I in my opinion, the NBA and NHL just need to shut it down. I mean, they've been out for almost 2 months now. And now you're going to ask to get guys back in shape. There's guys, Jason Tatum even admitted he hasn't even picked up a basketball since the suspension. I just think it's way too much to ask, because if one person gets sick, it's shutting down. Look what happened with the Chinese Basketball League. They tried to start up, got shut down within a day. The English Premier Soccer, which is one of the most expensive sports probably in the world, has said, we're done until this. I mean, the European countries have been so strict on this stuff. And then the Tour de France has been moved. Wimbledon's been canceled. I've never seen anything like this. This has been like an avalanche, like literally. Remember when the NBA suspended their season? You're just like, okay, this is getting real now. And then all of a sudden, bing, 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 bing.
And that's where everything started too, was when it was that player
Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
Yes, his Wikipedia page will live in infamy now. That's going to be an entry on there for the rest of his life. Not so fun.
He started it all.
Yeah.
But the Utah Jazz players, they are not happy with this guy. They say he's arrogant. He's mouthing off about this, making jokes about this. I mean, come on, guys. Not
probably headed for another team at some point, you would think.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of teammates on the Jazz would prefer he not come back.
Well, maybe at this point out of the league if he keeps it up.
That's right.
So I want to get your guys' input on what you thought of some of the selections in the draft. The Patriots ended up trading out of the first round. Not much of a surprise there. Their first pick was ended up being made in the second round, and I believe it was Bill Belichick's dog who might have hit a button and picked the first player.
I'll take the Division II guy. That's right.
Kyle
Duggar, the safety at a Lenore Rhine Division II school that I've never heard of. What's your take on a Division II player being picked in the second round? And I don't mean to hate on Division II schools. I'm not doing that. There's plenty of excellent athletes that end up going pro and having a
Jerry Rice
at a Division II schools, but I don't know. I thought it was a little early for a Division II safety out of Lenore Rhine. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised that the Patriots traded out of the first round because they do it all the time. But I was a little taken back by. I mean, I like the name Kyle Duggar. He sounds like he's a tough player. He's gotten a lot of good. He did get a lot of good reviews with Division II, and Danny Woodhead also came from a Division II school as well. The great Jerry Rice, he did as well. One of the greatest receivers of all time. But guys, I really think you got to look at it right now that this year is kind of just going to be, Tom Brady's gone, Gronkowski's gone. It's just going to be a year where I think the Patriots are just going through the motions. They're clearly trying to get younger, and this is clearly what they're going to try and do. Also, James Devlin just retired as well today. That just broke about 10, 12 minutes ago. Kind of too bad to see him go as well. But Patriots.
That's right. Breaking news right here on
yep,
HCAM.
Right here on HCAM. Yeah, James Devlin gone, retiring. So that's just kind of what I see. And I also see too that Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer will be competing for the starting job.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm as fired up about that quarterback room as Bill Belichick has been telling us, but we'll see how it goes. On Dugar, I think it's a guy that's probably not going to be much. Well, here we go. We'll see if I'll eat my words later, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be in your deep in your defensive rotation or up the top towards your defensive rotation early on. You look at him, he's got an ability to return kicks. I think that's what they're going to look to do with him. That's how he'll contribute in year one. They'll try to bring him along. In that secondary with that stack safeties room. So I think it's a good pick. I was worried it was a stretch, but looking back at the draft boards, there were some boards that had that guy as a late first round. Almost everybody had him in the second round. So it wasn't a stretch Division II pick, but if you're looking for a guy who's going to come in and immediately play, a lot of snaps defensively, I don't think that's the case. I think they'll bring him along slowly in that secondary, depending on how injuries go, of course. But I think he'll contribute right away in special teams. And I think that's what Bill Belichick was probably thinking. He can get something out of him in that first year, and then hopefully the McCourty twins can get him into shape so he can play a lot more in year two.
Well, Belichick loves that versatility. He's always looking for the players that can contribute in multiple ways. I was a little surprised and not too happy they didn't end up drafting a quarterback. I was really hoping that it would be some healthy competition in training camp between Stidham, Hoyer, and a draft pick. Or, they could obviously still sign someone undrafted or a free agent, but I would have loved to see three quarterbacks battling it out in training camp and in the preseason for that starting spot. And when you're going young, I think you should just have as much competition as you can all over the board.
Could they bring Cody Kessler back too? I don't know. He's come back here a couple times. I still think Jarrett Stidham will end up being the starter, and I'm okay with it because, let's see if the kid can play. And then if he's not going to do well, then maybe do we try to go get Deshaun Watson next year? Is that the plan? The Cam Newton rumors are flying around, but I don't think he'd be a good fit here. I think he just doesn't do it to me.
Yeah, I think you put the tape on Newton. He certainly can do some things that will help you, but the accuracy, I think that's something Belichick looks at that tape, and I can't get by with someone who's 55% efficiency in today's National Football League.
And his attitude too. I think his attitude's terrible. They don't need somebody like that.
I think there's some competitive intangibles that you like about Newton that he would potentially bring to the table, but I agree with you, Andy. He's just not a fit for the Patriots. They did sign 2 free agent quarterbacks they brought in. I think Louisiana Tech's Jamar Smith is one of them. He's an intriguing free agent signing. And the other, another Michigan State product to go along with Hoyer, potentially. They bring Brian Lewerke in as well as an undrafted free agent at quarterback. So they did draft 2, and both of them certainly have some potential. Both of them can run a little bit. Ethan Lewerke, I think, rushed for over 500 yards in his junior year. So these are, 2 mobile guys with an arm who've played in decent programs. So Smith might be a little bit more of a stretch out of Louisiana Tech. But boy, I don't know if this is, I've just been beaten into submission, guys, over the years by Bill Belichick, but I got to tell you, he's got me to the point where I pay more attention to who they sign in free agency than I do sometimes to their later round picks, because I do think the Patriots are very ahead of a lot of other teams in the National Football League in terms of how they look at these undrafted free agents. And I think more times than not, they find a diamond out there. They really do. The proof is all over the roster over the last 20 years.
Right. Yeah. I like what they do with the undrafted guys. But I just think you had a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of good quarterbacks.
Could have taken Jordan Love if you'd stayed at 23, right? That's the one everyone's talking about. Jordan Love, if you stayed at 23, you could have took him away from the Dolphins, and obviously that wasn't even on their radar.
Well, we got to talk about him because you know who took him. It ended up being the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, sorry, the Packers. Who am I thinking that the Dolphins took?
The Dolphins took Tua.
Tua. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. No, I'll tell you what, man. This thing in Green Bay, this is going to get real ugly. I'm telling you. Aaron Rodgers is not well liked by a lot of people. Like, I mean, look what happened with Brett Favre, like when they tried to push Aaron Rodgers in and how that all went south. This is something you're really going to have to watch going into this year, because can Matt LaFleur, who I actually thought did a pretty good job last year with the Packers, can he? I don't know, man. This is going to be fascinating because I think Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, I think he's slipping a little bit. I don't know. He is so difficult to deal with. I mean, this guy's coming for his job. I mean, I think his days are numbered in Green Bay, guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the flaws of Green Bay last year is they didn't have a lot of weapons. Their receiving core wasn't great. Their running backs weren't great. And you would have thought that with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, okay, we'll draft a few receivers high in the draft, maybe a running back. But no, they end up getting a quarterback, Jordan Love, out of Utah State. And that is, in my opinion, a direct slap in the face to Aaron Rodgers. And that's saying to him, we're looking for your replacement. So you better play very good or you're out of here. But we're trying to find the next guy because we're kind of sick of you and don't want you here anymore.
Oh, he's 36, right? Going on 37, if he hasn't hit that already. And I tell you, he was erratic last year. But again, this is what happens. Even when you're the best quarterback, potentially, arguably, in the National Football League, you get a new head coach, you get a new offensive system, and you don't have a ton of weapons. Even the almighty Aaron Rodgers can look a little pedestrian at times. Now, he got it together late in the season as he got more comfortable. And I don't think there's a fan base, though, right now, gentlemen, that's more upset about how they drafted besides the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. That might be the only team that's more upset today about their team not taking some more wide receiver help. I'm surprised that New England fans aren't calling for blood a little bit more with the lack of wide receiver help that the Patriots went for in the draft. But Green Bay Packers fans and Aaron Rodgers, he was expecting to get a weapon in the draft, and instead he got competition behind him. So, I mean, he's, I don't know. I've never interviewed Aaron Rodgers. I've never met Aaron Rodgers. All I know is what I see on TV. He comes across to me as a little aloof. Now, that's just what I see on television. He seems a little aloof. He doesn't seem like he's that interested in the system. He relies on his natural abilities and talent, I think, a lot more than Tom Brady does. So he just goes out there and he slings it sometimes. I don't think he's as game prepared as, say, a Tom Brady is in terms of understanding what the opposing team is trying to do against him. I think he relies on his God-given talents, and that's gotten him a long ways. But I think he's getting to that point in his career where he needs to start listening to his coaches a little bit more. And he needs to maybe, adopt some more of those Brady techniques in terms of checking down a little bit more, getting rid of the football. It's time for him to adjust a little bit as a starting quarterback, and we'll see if this is a wake-up call. I think this just will cause him to be more aloof, will cause him to be more outspoken. I don't think this will help the Packers in any way. In terms of him, it might help the Packers in the future in having their quarterback, but I think it's going to cause a car wreck in their divorce for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that will end up being the scenario. But it reminded me of when the Patriots took Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round in 2014. That wasn't as much of a slap in the face to Brady. That was just, I think, a little pressure. At least it's the second round. Brady was aging, and they weren't sure at that point, I guess, if he could still play like he has played over the last few years before that. So they wanted to see if Brady could still play, but it was saying to Brady that, hey, if you can't do what you used to do, we might have the next guy right here. So you better step up your game. But the Packers just going right in there, trading up in the first round, grabbing a quarterback. That's just saying to Aaron Rodgers, we are looking to replace you. We are looking to get rid of you.
Guys, they're not afraid. They're not afraid to make a move like that. They did the same thing with Brett Favre. I mean, the Packers are not afraid to. They're not afraid of negative publicity. And they've been like this for a long time. So
That's why they've been so successful. I think, there's a lot of differences between the Packers and the Patriots, but there's also some similarities there. The organization does not mess around. They want to keep it going for the long term. So, again, this is a quarterback-driven league. I think these quarterbacks have got to get used to it. When you turn 35, the team's going to start looking for another quarterback, no matter who you are, what your name is. They're going to. So you've just got to get over it and go out there. I mean, that kid's not going to be able to beat out Aaron Rodgers. Go out there and just win your job like usual. That's all you got to do, Aaron.
Right. And they could just be hoping that Aaron Rodgers takes a step up this year with that competition breathing down his neck. Kind of like Brady did when the Patriots got Garoppolo. Brady took a big step up and was playing outstanding back to his elite days. And he blew away the competition, kept the starting job, won a few
two more
Super
rings.
Bowls.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah.
They might be hoping in the Packers case that it has that kind of effect on Aaron Rodgers, but I just don't think it will with Aaron Rodgers. Just a totally different mindset from what I see compared to Tom Brady.
Yeah, no question. I agree.
So the Patriots, they ended up taking several guys in the draft. Did you guys have a particular favorite pick that the Patriots took? One of my favorites was the linebacker out of Alabama, Anthony Jennings. I thought that was a great pick. They needed some help at the linebacker position. He had a good career in Alabama. I think he is going to be somebody to watch in the next couple of years for the Patriots.
Well, Tom, you make a good point there. I mean, the Patriots have had a lot of success in those SEC drafts. They've gotten a lot of good players out of the SEC. I remember Jarvis Green comes to mind. He had a great career at LSU. Kevin Falk out of LSU. Jarrett Stidham came out of Auburn. The school still is out on him. But I believe, did Dante Hightower come from the SEC too?
He did.
I'm just saying, David Andrews, who I am thrilled is coming back this year. He is the leader of that offensive line. And this guy is a warrior. I love David Andrews. I think it's going to be great to have him back in that lineup this year.
I think the picks the tight ends that I'm most intrigued by, I think
I was surprised they took two of them in the third round.
I was too. And then when I read a little bit more about Dalton Keene, and to Andy's comment earlier, if people just joining us, they have had their fullback retire, the Patriots did. And reading about Dalton Keene, he might be a little bit more of a fullback than he is a tight end right now in terms of what his skill set is. So that makes you think about how they might utilize him. And then Ossie out of UCLA, he is that, watching those plays, those slot tight end plays, right? Those seam tight end plays, I should say, that obviously Rob Gronkowski made so famous here in New England. That was his bread and butter with UCLA. So he's used to running those type of patterns as a tight end. I think that's where he can contribute right away. He had a huge game against USC this season for them as well, and caught a couple of passes on those seam routes. And boy, that was missing last year. Benjamin Watson did all he could to try and fill some kind of a role in tight end, but they had absolutely nothing. Nice to see the Patriots. Took them 2 years, but nice to see them finally address their tight end position. And they did it in free agency as well. So we'll see how all that takes place coming forward.
It would have been nice if they addressed the tight end situation last year.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I know they were a little late to the party, but I just feel like they could have done better. It almost felt like they did it on purpose. I know they didn't do it on purpose, but it kind of felt like they're like, you don't need a tight end. Don't worry about it.
What about the kicker? I mean, now Gostkowski's gone. Is Nick Folk, is he coming back? Or the gentleman they drafted, is he going to – what are they going to do?
Did you guys catch his press conference?
I missed that one.
I didn't.
Oh, my gosh. His first sentence was, "I'm very talented." That's it. Instead of saying hello, that's what he said. I wish I was making that up. And then, of course, the whole tattoo debacle. He's got some
that's right.
controversial tattoo that he says he's going to cover up before the season starts. So, yeah, he had to deal with a lot right out of the gate. He's a kicker out of Marshall. I know Belichick talked about how strong his leg is. So
Should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I think that's what I said when I went to my first radio job. I'm very talented.
I'm very talented. Should start every interview with that.
Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us. You can catch Andy and Matt on the Sports Buzz, typically on MyFM every Saturday at 11 a.m. Guys, thanks so much. But unfortunately, we're out of time, so we have to wrap things up. Take care and be well, guys. Thank you.
You too, Tom. Be safe.
You too,
Bye,
Tom.
Andy.
Take care, Matt. Good seeing you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. That'll do it for this edition of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. Catch us tomorrow, 2 p.m. and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye, everybody.